This is Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York. If you haven't been, then you probably know Coney Island for its historic wooden boardwalk, world-famous glizzy eating contests, water with high amounts of bacteria, a charming amusement park that is also slightly dangerous, and its reputation as the home of NIMS.
We live back in Coney Island, yo! We live back in Coney Island! Live from Coney Island!
A host for New Yorkers' favorite media organization, Side Talk.
You're not from New York! You can't survive this shit!
American boardwalks from Santa Cruz, California to Atlantic City, New Jersey to Coney Island, New York are icons of American culture. Today, Coney Island is a mix of old school charm and modern day thrills. The first time I visited Coney Island, I found my heart filled with nostalgia. On these elevated platforms above the sand and the sea, many of us make fond memories as we face death on scary roller coasters, get scammed in sus carnival games, and devour copious amounts of high-calorie food. A trip to the Seaside Boardwalk and Carnival is one of the greatest American vacation traditions, and Coney Island is arguably the preeminent boardwalk in the world. Before I dive into the history of Coney Island and defend its supremacy, let's talk about geography. Hugging the bottom of Brooklyn is the Coney Island Peninsula. I say peninsula because Coney Island is not an island. It was formerly the westernmost of the Outer Barrier Islands along the southern shore of Long Island. However, in 1924, local landowners and the city succeeded in physically connecting Coney Island to New York with landfill, a technique that uses trash, debris, and other materials to artificially create land. Confusingly, the island-turned-peninsula of Coney Island houses three neighborhoods: Brighton Beach, Manhattan Beach, and the Amusement District, Coney Island. Before European colonization, the Canarsie tribe inhabited the westernmost area of Long Island. Eventually, the island was added to the Dutch colony of New Netherland, and in 1643, a group of English Mennonites were granted Coney Island and the surrounding land, establishing the town of Gravesend. The name Coney Island allegedly comes from the Dutch word for rabbit, conine. However, the origin of the island name is still debated by historians. New Netherland was seized by the English, and Coney Island later became part of New York. In the 19th century, Coney Island started to become something of a getaway for Manhattanites, although there weren't yet Ferris wheels or hot dogs. According to the great architectural historian Rem Koolhaas, Coney Island was the nearest zone of virgin nature that can counteract the innervations of urban civilization. Innervations is just a pretentious academic way of saying tiredness. Essentially what he is saying is that Coney Island provided a break from the chaotic, never-ending rat race of Work Island. During the 1800s, sea bathing became a more common leisure activity, and people also promoted it as a health remedy for various ailments. Resorts and hotels started popping up across the island to capitalize on this new trend, especially as New York's economy and population rapidly expanded due to industrialization and immigration. Railroad lines and major roads connecting Coney Island to Brooklyn made it more accessible. Although celebrities of the 19th century, such as P.T. Barnum, Herman Melville, and Edgar Allan Poe made visits, parts of Coney Island were known for their accessibility to people of all classes. Influential poet Walt Whitman wrote the following about a clam bake he attended in 1847. The members of the party were numerous and various, embracing all the professions and nearly all the trades. Coney Island was also home to the country's first roller coaster, the Switchback Railway, which hit top speeds of 6 miles per hour. Now, that may not seem like a lot today, but for 1884, that was pretty crazy. When the Brooklyn Bridge was completed in 1883, Coney Island was finally linked to Manhattan. This marked the beginning of Coney Island's golden era, when it became considered the best beach on the East Coast and the most densely occupied place in the world on summer Sundays.
Coney Island, the world's greatest fun frolic, with its beach miles long, all peppered with people, the place where merriment is king.
So what was Coney Island like back then? In a word, wild. From around the 1880s to 1940s, Coney Island was the largest amusement area in the entire United States. Coney Island had crowded beaches, but it also had areas known for alcohol, gambling, and prostitution. Coney Island was a place where people from all walks of life could come together, wear less restrictive clothing, and enjoy a kind of social freedom that was rare in this time period. In the words of George Tillieu, if Paris is France, then Coney Island between June and September is the world.
Red, white, and blue, motherfucker. These colors don't run, bitch. USA!
As workers began to receive half-day Saturdays and sometimes even full weekends off, shout out the Fair Labor Standards Act, Coney Island became the perfect place to spend that newfound leisure time. Coney Island was known as the People's Playground, a place where even the poorest immigrants could enjoy the same activities as everyone else. For a time, rides and hot dogs cost only a nickel, prices accessible to the working class. Although the area certainly became a melting pot for people of different ethnicities and backgrounds, segregation and bigotry were still a reality. As the 20th century rolled in, Coney Island's offerings became more professionalized and family-friendly. The introduction of enclosed amusement parks like Steeplechase Park, Luna Park, and Dreamland marked a new era. Luna Park, which eventually had over 1 million electric lights, focused on simplicity and immersion. Dreamland, in contrast, was designed to be elegant, containing white bow arts buildings and a posh ballroom. These parks operated at a massive scale for the early 1900s, such that Dreamland was capable of holding 100,000 people in a park complete with a replica of Venice, roller coasters, and an imitation German village populated with 300 little people. The Coney Island amusement parks formerly had many practices that would not fly in the 21st century.
It was called the Blowhole Theater. As a couple stepped onto the stage, a jet of air blew the woman's skirt up around her waist, while the dwarf gleefully shocked her date with an electric cattle prod.
Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs opened in 1916, and in 1923, the iconic Riegelman Boardwalk was completed. The expansion of the Stillwell Avenue subway station brought even more crowds, with over 1 million people visiting on some summer days. The Coney Island Cyclone, a wooden roller coaster with top speeds of 60 miles per hour, was built in 1927 and is still standing today, although it currently has some maintenance issues. During the Great Depression, the leisure sector was hit hard, and Coney Island was no exception. But in the 1930s, there was perhaps an even greater threat to New York's favorite beach: Robert Moses, the New York City Parks Commissioner, who is also my channel's #1 enemy. I have a whole video on him if you're curious. Moses used seizures, eminent domain, and new regulations to impose his vision of a clean, quiet, suburban beach. He regulated street performers, restricted the sale of food on the beach, and moved the boardwalk inland in 1941, demolishing several buildings and reducing the size of the amusement area. Moses worked to change the previously unclassified and unrestricted zoning into zoning that was largely residential, forever altering Coney Island's culture. Robert Moses and city officials built large amounts of public housing near the coastline, as Coney Island was a perfect place to move poor and troubled New Yorkers as far away as possible from Manhattan. Building public housing near the exposed coast also places the most vulnerable New Yorkers in the path of natural disasters. Many housing projects were decimated by Hurricane Sandy in 2012, and some were still dealing with repair issues 10 years later in 2022. Although Robert Moses may have cleaned up Coney Island and increased the supply of housing for low-income New Yorkers, his actions slowly destroyed the iconic urban wilderness captured in the photographs of Ouija and the etchings of Reginald Marsh. In the 1950s, more high-rise housing projects were built, and real estate tycoon Fred Trump, yes, Donald Trump's father, bought up land that Moses demolished. Trump's real estate projects were mired in controversy. He faced a lawsuit from the Justice Department for anti-black discrimination, and he was investigated by the Senate for profiteering on government contracts. Trump destroyed Steeplechase, the last remaining big amusement park, after it closed down in 1964. In the 1960s and 70s, Coney Island became a symbol of American urban decay and the fall of New York City. Former world-class amusement parks sat abandoned, overgrown with trees. Coney Island held a reputation for crime and gang violence, and it served as a setting in Sol Urich's 1965 novel, The Warriors, which was later adapted into a cult classic film.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
The story follows a street gang on their journey from the Bronx to their home in Coney Island. Now, despite the rusting theme parks, Coney Island wasn't completely down bad. In 1983, Coney Island native Dick Sigan launched the first annual Mermaid Parade, which has since become a funky, beloved tradition attracting hundreds of thousands of people each year. Coney Island is the home of Nathan's Famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest, where crazy people eat as many hot dogs as possible, sometimes more than 50 dogs in a 10-minute period. I attended it last year, and it's pretty gross. Joey Chestnut, who many regard as the Michael Jordan of competitive eating, has won 16 titles. In the middle of the 2022 competition, an animal rights activist shoved Joey Chestnut, who then put the protester in a chokehold and still won despite the interruption.
Yo, Joey Chestnut just beat the shit out that dude, then stuffed 3 glizzies down his throat. You could never.
Joey Chestnut has since been banned from the Nathan's Hot Dog Contest after signing a deal with a plant-based hot dog company. In a nation of meat eaters, Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York has become central to the struggle for vegan dominance. The Coney Island of today looks much different than it did in the 1970s, and much of that has to do with an economic plan formed by several New York City organizations, including New York's Department of City Planning. A 2005 comprehensive rezoning plan for Coney Island aimed to improve amusements, provide jobs to locals, and develop a vibrant neighborhood. Although the plan received some backlash, it can certainly be considered successful. It led to the revival of Luna Park and the development of new housing, retail spaces, and restaurants. While many parts of New York are overrun with clueless Midwestern tourists, finance bros wearing suits, and annoying Bushwick hipsters,
I think it looks like cool.
Coney Island continues to stand as an authentic slice of New York, accessible and welcoming to everyone. New York, despite being a concrete jungle, is still a beach city, and it's incredibly easy to access outdoor fun in the summer. The beach is looking as blue as ever, the boardwalk is still drawing crowds, and the Coney Island cyclone, nearly 100 years later, is still making people scream. Coney Island's history is a wild ride, one that mirrors the ups and downs of New York City itself. From its early days as a quiet sandbar, to its rise as the ultimate seaside playground, to further urban decay and its ongoing renewal, Coney Island has been a place where people from all walks of life could come together to escape their troubles, play, and create memories. Even as it continues to evolve, Coney Island remains a testament to the enduring appeal of a physical space designed around fun. I think that's something worth holding on to. If you have thoughts on American boardwalks and piers, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. For more videos on New York's urban landscape, check out my videos on brownstones or the history of Williamsburg. Thanks for watching. Peace.